Welcome to Fold Academy. My name is Hudson Lin. I'm the program coordinator at the Fold. I'm excited today to have Tao Wong here with us to talk about how to build an author business. Before we get started, a few housekeeping items. This workshop is approximately 1 hour long, which includes 15 minutes of question and answers at the end. So if you have questions during the workshop, please submit it using the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll be using Zoom's auto captioning functions. So please note that sometimes the captions might not get transcribed correctly, but all captions will be corrected when the recording is made available on YouTube next week. And so yes, the workshop will be recorded and it will be uploaded to YouTube next week, and you will receive an email with the link. So if you have missed anything during the workshop, there's plenty of opportunity to rewatch it again. And so now I'm delighted to introduce Tao Wong. Tao is a Canadian author based in Toronto with series in the lit RPG, cozy fantasy, science fiction, and fantasy spaces. As a multiple times Amazon US bestselling author, he recently signed a deal with Ace Books to reprint the first 3 books of his 1,000 Li series and was a finalist for the Kindle Storyteller UK Award in 2021. Please welcome Tao Wong.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you all. I guess I am going to start, after that great introduction, I'm going to start the presentation. And just 1 second, let me go and share my screen. All right, so we're going to talk about building an author business. Quick background, I've been an independently published author for about 8 years now, since 2017. I've also run a business since, 2006, 2007, I can't remember. So I've got a bit of a business background. A lot of my focus is on that, but I've also been thinking a lot about careers as an author, and there's different aspects that you can look into, and that's what we're going to go into today. So it's not, sorry, it's slow. Here's a quick structure of the talk: career plan and career goals, all the career paths that are available, the 4 P's of the marketing, the tools that you can use to be a retailer or publisher independent, which is growing more and more important to some extent, and then a quick discussion about supplementary income streams, because very few authors can actually be full-time authors. You kind of need to add a little bit, generally within the writing and publishing sphere, though some people also just hold secondary jobs outside. But we'll go into all of that in a bit. So one of the biggest things when we're talking about a career plan and your goals is what I talk about, asking the questions. When you're asking any of these questions that I'm going to be detailed, you want to look in and make sure that they're all time-based. So are you looking at your career in 5 years, in 1 year, in 20 years down the road? Having answers on each of those is going to be important. And because you're an author, something else to keep in mind, your copyright lasts for the rest of your life and 50 to 70 years, depending on whichever country you're talking about and their copyright laws. So there's also a time frame that is after your death that you should be thinking about to some extent. If you tried depending on which traditionally published contract that you sign, that might not matter as much because publishers have been taking life of copyright, but that money is still going to be coming into your trust or your will and potentially to your heirs, depending again on, how well you've done and the contracts. The other question is, if you've got specific career goals, how soon do you want to be any of these things have to play out? It's one thing if you're looking at it and going, well, I want to be an author and I need I want to be a full-time author, but I can do this in 20 years. I love my job. I love my career. I have kids and I don't have time to dedicate to writing full-time, even if I could potentially do that. Another thing where, and I'm not seeing this, I just got let go from my job. Well, I need to make money in the next year. I'm going to take this year off and I need to make money. That's going to dictate some of your career paths and what you need to do. Because if, for example, you wanted to do TribePub, a year is probably not enough time if you don't have an agent already, if you haven't signed or aren't going to sign a deal or have any hope of signing a deal within a short period of time, because of how long it takes to find an agent, negotiate a contract, and then get paid. Sign your contract and then get paid, because sometimes signing contracts with TribePub can take 6 to 9 months, especially the big five, who are the ones who might actually pay a decent advance. So time frame for when you need to succeed at whatever goals you have are both important. I generally talk about a 3 to 5 year plan. So knowing where you want to be between 3 to 5 years and what your main goal is as your career. And I'll explain what that is in a bit. Something else is you do want to be reevaluating yourself or all of this on a relatively regular basis. Things change. You might get married. You might have a kid. Where you used to be fine, earning minimum wage, suddenly you're like, oh, I actually need to be earning a little bit more because my kid's eating me out of house and home because he's a teenager now, and so on and so forth. When I look at a career plan or career goals, and what I recommend is to think about the three major needs, especially as an author, which is what I call the money, ego, and craft needs. Again, I'll explain all of these in a bit. So career, the money question. Money is money. We all want it. We all have to survive on it. It's the capitalist hellscape that we live in. One of the aspects to note is, especially if you're going down the indie publishing career path or a hybrid one, is how much can you afford to lose? Sorry, let me just kill that quickly. It is really annoying. Sorry, I didn't realize I was going pinging off there. So how much money can you afford to lose? Because indie publishing does require money. Unfortunately, you can do it cheap. There are ways of doing it cheap, and that's a completely different talk. But no matter how cheap you do it, you're still going to need at least some capital, a few $100, 500, 1,000, something like that. If you don't even have that, and unfortunately, again, another truth, the more money you have, the easier it is to succeed at indie publishing. The other side of the question of money is how much do you want to make, and whether or not it's even a consideration. Not all authors need or want their writing to be a career and a money-making thing. If I've met people who have written memoirs about their family and their family's journey. They want it out there. They want a story out there. But the goal is the book. It is not the money that they could get from it. Opposite side of the equation, myself. Money is important. This is how I feed my family. So it's something that you have to look at and decide within yourself how much money is going to affect what you want to do, because that will change your career path. Certain career paths, money will be easier to acquire, will require higher capital, and time frame will change too. We'll discuss that in a bit. So money is out. Moving on, we've got craft. When I talk about craft, I mean the process of writing, the skill set that you're doing, how good you're gonna do, whether or not you care if what you write gets better or not. This seems like a strange question to some of you, I bet, potentially most of you. However, again, having spent 8 years at this, some people are more interested in being publishers or being in the industry or having finished a book rather than the craft of writing itself. Some people are interested on the opposite end, on learning how to be an amazing writer, and they don't care about what genre they're writing in. The goal is to write and be good at that. That question is important because certain things like indie publishing, until very recently, and even still now to some extent, really pushes people to publish. There's not a lot of time for review. There's not a lot of time for editing. There's some advantages to that process, not just in money, but in craft side of it. But it does mean that what you put out might not have seen, multiple iterations. You might not be working with the best editors. Sometimes you find a new editor, you work with them, they don't give you what you want, but you've got a deadline and you have to push it out. So the craft question is quite important in some cases about where you want to go. The other side of the equation is where you are in terms of craft. Again, 3 to 5 year plan. If you're a new author, if you're 18 years old, you're not as, well, you're probably not, I shouldn't say you're not, you're probably not as good as someone who's been writing for 40 years and it's like 60, 55 or something, has been traditionally published, seen a ton of editors, and has put out a bunch of books, right? So when your craft level isn't very high, it will dictate whether the level of success and the chances of you doing certain work. Now, we all know that this industry is somewhat based on luck, but craft does matter. So similar, these are the same questions. The other thing that I also want to raise about craft is how fast someone can naturally write. We get better. Some of us get faster as we write, or as we get more competent at what we're doing, and confident, really. But certain sides of the industry, trad pub in particular, can lean towards slower writers and support them better. If you're putting out a book once every 2-3 years, trad pub is much more likely to be a viable path than if you're putting one every 2-3 years in indie pub. Unfortunately, again, indie pub trends right now towards people who can write faster. Now, I've begun to see more and more success in authors who put out one book a year kind of thing. But I haven't seen a lot of quick success, at least, with people who are putting out 2 or 3, a book every 2-3 years. So again, speed matters in how fast you can write, how fast you can edit, how much time you have to do all of this, because that's, not a major thing. This is a weird side of it, but a reality of it. If you're working with trad pub, sometimes what they want you to do is might change your story more than what you would prefer. Indie pub, the indie career path, the only person you have to listen to is yourself. Whether or not it sells or doesn't sell, you get to make all of those decisions. Trad pub often you have to listen to some extent to your editors. How much you listen to, what somewhat depends on your relationship with them, your ability, your craft ability, what your contract you signed with them is like. I've seen contracts where the traditional publisher has the right to make whatever changes they want on your manuscript, whether or not you like it. So a lot of that is a question of compromise and where you're willing to compromise. All of that will feed into where you want to go. The other side of the equation on top of that, when we're talking about changing genres or styles, or it's because of the reality is certain genres are hot in TradPub and are considered the thing, and that's where it's selling. Romantasy right now is selling really well, though whether or not that trend might peak or crest within the next year or two, and then no one wants to buy it in TradPub. Who knows? Again, remember, their timeline is 2 years out into the future. So anything they buy now, 1 to 2 years away from release. So they're always looking much further ahead than IndiePub because we can write, release, get something out within 3 to 6 months kind of thing. So very different viewpoints in there. Urban fantasy, as an example, is one area that TradPub has not really been buying very much unless you are a select few people. Urban fantasy, if that's what you're writing or what, and you really, really love it and aren't willing to change genres, TradPub might not be a viable option. Again, there are people releasing. It's just much, much more difficult. So the ego question. Money matters. Where you want to do in terms of writing and how you write and what you write. The last one is ego. Ego is what I consider the things that are nice to have, that feed the soul and tell you where you want to go. So everything from bookstore presence. If you're indie, it's unlikely to see your books in bookstores. If you're going to Indigo, if you're going into Borders, or you walk in and you're not going to see your books in there, most likely. Now, TradPub, you might not see your books in there either, but you have a much better chance of it. Auto signings can happen as an indie publisher, but it is much, much harder. Certain events and certain festivals will completely lock you out if you're not TradPub. And obviously, auto signings, you also have to do it yourself as an indie pub. So you have to take your time out from writing to go and organize these things. Whereas with TradPub, sometimes they will organize it for you. Awards and acclaim are the same thing. TradPub has much better inroads, partly because they will print hundreds of arcs and send it out to the people who are listening and who are reading and who are voting for these awards. Same with, they'll send it out to other authors to go and get them voted on. All of this kind of awards and acclaim is often not something you see as an indie pub, partly because we don't have those lists, right? I don't have a list of the 200 people who vote or the 600 people who are most important to vote for to get a Hugo Award. TradPub probably knows them. They're quite used to giving out those books. I also am not going to print 600 books out if necessary, pay $3 per book to send that out to go and potentially win an award. That's a lot of money that I just can't. Whereas for TradPub, it makes a difference for them as a corporation to have more award winners. So they are more likely to invest in you, which means you have more chance to win awards that way. If that's important to you, TradPub is the way to go at the moment. Again, a lot of this could potentially be replicated if you had enough money. Point number one. Naming the lights, TV, movie deals, etc. Again, it's a trad pub thing. You don't see as many indies with it. Romance is about the only major one, where if you are very, very successful as a romance author, you potentially could sign yourself with a movie an entertainment agent who can then get your books out there. But for the most part, especially in sci-fi and fantasy, mystery to some extent, I think horror for sure, you're not likely to see get TV or movie deals or anything like that unless you go to trad pub, who do have, again, the connections to do that. Mind you, this is 2025, give it another 5-10 years, this might change. We are certainly seeing changes. I put ego under social media presence and whether or not it's important to you because it's a question of whether or not you want to be out there. There are trad pub authors who do get by without that social media presence, but because social media is one of the tools that trad pub has, you're going to see, a trad pub author has, you're going to feel it as more of a requirement to have a presence. Whereas I know a lot of ghostwritten people, a lot of pen names who have zero social media presence as a indie, and they do well. Now, part of that is the genres that they write in, part of that is how fast they write. But also, we also have access and profitability to do paid advertising. So if you want to hide yourself away from the world and just write, to some extent, indie pub is the easier way to do it. Unless, you're Nora Roberts, and that's a completely different game. So here's the things that are going to limit where you're going to go over and outside of all your personal considerations of money, ego, craft, right? Genre demand. We talked about urban fantasy and whatnot. Even if everything else says, hey, I have no real money. I really don't want to have bookstore. I really want bookstore presence. If trad pub isn't buying it, it doesn't matter, right? You can't go down that road. I write lit RPG, and until very, very recently, there was absolutely no demand for lit RPG. That's over a decade plus of no presence of lit RPG in bookstores. Only recently have we started seeing things appear in terms of Dungeon Crawler Carl and the like. So for a decade, if you were trying to write a lit RPG and get it into bookstores and trad pub, you were getting nowhere. Again, time frame, right? If your time frame is career-wise, you want to be trad pub and you don't care if it takes you 50 years, now would be a great time to be trying it. You've been banging your head, but at least you've made the connections and the networking to potentially get it. Product limitations. And when I say product, I'm talking about word count, bookstore presence, product demand. You probably heard that mostly they book debut books, they're wanting somewhere between 75 to 100K, sometimes a little smaller, 50K, potentially smaller than that for novellas, if you're going through tall, but somewhere around that range. Paper prices have been going up, whereas sale prices of books have not gone up. So that's a physical limitation in those two. There's also a physical limitation in terms of the book binding that you can actually physically do. If your book is this thick, you cannot bind and ship that without the book coming apart. So if you are someone who writes 400,000 word chunkers, and that's mostly epic fantasy, but it happens, you are not likely to get any of that through trad pub. They're just going to put it in there. bookstores don't want one book that looks that big when they could fit 4 books in there and potentially sell all 4 of those, not unless you are selling like crazy already. So again, all of that will change where you are and what you're doing. And again, we've got a craft question. Maybe you can change how you're writing. Maybe you can figure out how to write shorter books, but you're going to have to compromise writing and editing and speed and style. I've discussed all of that. And the time limits. So there's basically 3 author career paths. Trad pub, which is traditional publishing, which means you write a manuscript, you license the manuscript to someone else, and the the publisher then edits it, publishes it out for everyone else to acquire. Within that, you have the big 5, so the traditional big 5 companies who give the best advances by far, but and have multiple imprints in there, but they are very hard to get into. And then you've got the second string, mid-level and smaller people who run around, who are traditional publishing, but they don't give very much advances, but they do take up a lot of the expenses. So the big thing is trad pub should be they cover most of the expenses and you potentially get an advance. Self-publishing is where you do it yourself. It's also known as indie publishing. Hybrid authors or hybrid publishing is where you do a little bit of both. So if you're writing fast, you can potentially have a trad pub deal and do self-publishing yourself. That's where I am in these days, but I started as a self-publisher. There's a few other things that you might hear of: vanity publishing, where generally speaking, you are paying someone else to publish your book for you, and they take all your royalties and everything. Never go there. Bad idea. If someone asks you for money, do some heavy research and talk to other authors. You've also might have heard of ghostwriting. In that case, you are not going to be publishing it underneath your name or a pen name that you choose, but you are writing it for someone else to put as a name. Generally, ghostwriting requires you to give up all rights. But I'm not talking about that as a career path, mostly because we're talking, in this case, we're talking about work that you've written yourself and want to keep underneath your own name. So, pros and cons of doing traditional publishing. It's slow. It's multiple stages with gatekeepers. You've got agents that might be required. Generally, with the big 5, you do need to do it to get it through there. If not, you're entering the slush pile of smaller agents, and potentially some of the big 5 do still have slush piles, but I don't think a lot of them do. They mostly take just agent submissions. You're looking at minimum 1 to 2 years to get published, even if they receive your thing. They agree to go and take your book. Sometimes it can take longer. I know trad pub authors who have taken 3-4 years for their first book to come out. Trad pub is focused on bookstore, physical books sales in Borders and Walmart and indie bookstores and the like. They are less focused on digital publishing, and which includes ebooks and audio. Generally, copyright is licensed, so you're not selling your copyright, you're licensing it to them, whether it's for the term of copyright, which is again your life plus 50 or 70 years, and includes can include all your rights. So that means merchandising, it can mean film and TV, it can mean audiobooks, ebooks, special editions. Your agent, hopefully, if you've got one, will help you negotiate and get you some of those rights removed. If you don't have an agent, an entertainment lawyer who specializes in traditional publishing or publishing can also do the same thing and do negotiations with you. You can do negotiations yourself and then have an entertainment lawyer review the work. Either way, please, please, I beg of you, get someone to look over it who knows their work. Another con of it is that royalty rates are lower. Like you will receive a lower percentage, anywhere from 8 to 15%. For physical books, depending on the type of books and where they sell it and a whole bunch of other things. Audiobooks are 25%, digital ebooks are 25% of what they receive. So out of the $5 that a book might be sold on Amazon from, Amazon might only send them $3.50. And then you get 25% of that $3.50 for that digital ebook. So, and that's the same with what you see in bookstores, like, so that's worth noting. One of the biggest pros of going TradPub is there's no upfront costs. It can come with an advance, generally with Big Five, though some smaller companies will give you an advance. The amount depending on a variety of factors. I won't go into it right now, but it does mean that you get some upfront money for it. You do not have to pay out anything other than time. Generally speaking, you do get editing and marketing support with TradPub. You get some really good editors who still stay in TradPub and who have seen a lot of things, and legitimacy, so ego, because there is still some degree of negative feedback if you're a self-pub only author. Self-publishing pros and cons. It's fast. As I said, we can get a book out within 3 months, sometimes even faster, depending on what your process is. There are no blackout dates. There's no restrictions on speed or genre or when you can promote it. If I wanted to release a book today and I wanted to release book 2 tomorrow, I don't care. No one's stopping you, right? You are the one running this, which means you're running a small business. You need to know taxes, you need to know advertising, you need to know legal stuff, not as an expert, but enough to get you through all of this. It is expensive. And when I say expensive, I'm talking about time, money, or expertise. If you've got a lot of money, you can do things really fast. If you have a lot of expertise, you can do things really fast, like designing a cover, for example. If you're a graphic designer, you don't have to pay someone to create your graphic design anymore. If you know how to edit yourself, you don't have to do that. That's expertise. You're trading that for money. But you're still going to have to edit your own work. You're still going to have to create the cover. So you're always trading off something in all of that. Self-publishing also allows you to tap into multiple income streams a lot easier. You can sign deals for things like audiobooks, ebooks, webcomics, and merchandise. You can create your own merchandise. You can go sell books. All the possibilities are there for you to tap into. You're just going to have to trade your time and expertise to figure it out, which means that you're not writing. Generally less validation, and you're more likely to get hit by scammers. Like, don't get me wrong, TradPub authors get hit by scammers a lot too. But it feels like there are more scammers coming up after self-pub authors than there are trad, in my view. Generally favors faster writers, as I've mentioned. When you're doing hybrid, you mostly need to be fast, right? Because if you are too slow at writing, you're not releasing fast enough to keep either your TradPub publishers happy or your self-published readers happy. So if you're fast, then you can kind of keep both happy. So it favors people like that. You can be hybrid if you have different product types. And what I mean by that is, as a self-pub author, even before I got a deal with Penguin, with Ace Books, sorry, I was signing licensing deals for audiobooks already. So that's sort of like traditional publishing, in the sense that I just gave them my book, they paid for the narrators, and they moved on. You can do that as a self-published author and receive some degree of additional income and be somewhat hybrid. The negative about that is you don't get as much legitimacy. It's still not considered the same as having a trad pub book go out through one of the big trad pub people. It's also hard to do this because you're trying to balance both a self-pub career and a trad pub career, and they require different things. Just hunting for an agent can take a lot of time as a trad pub author or someone who's trying to go down that road, because you're applying and sending out a lot of things. All of that time takes away from doing something like marketing or building your, writing a new book. Yeah. So marketing. I can do a whole presentation on marketing. I have. So very quickly, everything in marketing can be mostly broken down. And again, these are weird, soft categories. Things change, but I prefer the old 4 Ps: product, price, placement, promotion. As a trad author, you have very little control over the product, as in they will dictate how the book looks, they will dictate cover design, they will dictate whether you get a hardcover or a paperback, whether you get an audiobook, and so on and so forth. They'll dictate price, they'll dictate placement. The only thing you can do is non-paid promotion for the most part, which is social media. When you're thinking about products, it's worth thinking about it in all the ways that your IP, your intellectual property, your book can be used. So everything from TV and movie to stage, to merchandise based off your comics, to cosplay. I've seen someone do clothing, right? All of these things are potential products coming out from your IP. Price will vary based off different markets. If you're indie published, you can alter all of that. So you can make it really cheap in India, like for like $1, because they don't have much earnings. As trad pub, you don't have as much. As a traditional author, that's the publisher's job. You don't have to worry about that. You can also do promotional pricing. You can do things like penetration pricing and so forth. Placement is where you want to put your books, why you want to put certain books, whether or not you want to be exclusive to Amazon, or if you want to be in libraries. These are all things that you have to consider if you are indie published or hybrid. Lastly, promotions, just as a general idea, you can break it up into paid and unpaid. Paid promotions are generally much easier to do as a independently published or self-published author, because we earn a higher royalty rate. And we can see that money and the results happen immediately. If I start an ad now, I can look at my dashboard, and then within a day, well, within a few hours generally, I can see if it's beginning to have any effect. Trad pub authors do not get that information until 6 months to a year, if they get any information that is useful. I am running out of time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit. Tools for retailer and publisher independence. If you, whatever career you're doing, I recommend that you look at these things. You want a social media account that you own and an author website that you own. Don't, pay for this, put it out there. build a newsletter so that you can contact your fans. Because if you're in even in a tripub career, you might be working with 3 or 4 different publishers, putting out different books. You want to be able to contact your fans and say, hey, look at these books, because a publisher might only contact their fans of that publishing house. They're not going to contact everyone else within that. So this is why you want your own newsletter. You can do that via having short stories, bonus content for new readers. You can create exclusive items, merchandise, artwork, anything to get people to subscribe to your newsletter and keep them informed about your career in the future. You can put all of this on a social media platform, but if you're banned from the social media platform, you lose all of these people. So have your own. The last thing to do I'm going to talk about is maximizing your licensing opportunities. If you've got a good agent, or if you're in a period of transition, you can often look at things that aren't included. J.K. Rowling is an example of having not signed away her ebooks for Harry Potter and made a lot of money out of that. And the time when she signed it, ebooks weren't really considered. So she benefited from that. Sanderson most recently kept his special editions, and he did a Kickstarter and made amazing amount of money, like 4 million plus, something like that. By doing that, make sure you keep fan contact. That means doing events, going out, speaking to people, and look at, multiple sources of income, which is this section. So these are all supplementary income streams if you're building a career, especially in the early periods, potentially later on, whether you're looking at ghostwriting, which is writing for someone else, basically selling your writing to them and not having your name on it. A licensed IP writing is generally work for hire. So that means you get your name on it, but you don't get additional royalties. But generally, that's more upfront pay, mostly. Again, rules change, contracts change, but that's generally how licensed IP works. Short stories are a good way of getting your name out as a promotional tool and making money because you don't have to go through agents. You can write, and it improves your craft. And school visits, grants, Patreon, Kickstarters, all of these are different options for supplementary income. This is how you can potentially build out your author career. Don't just rely on one area. It can go away really fast. And that's about it. And this is where the Q&A section starts.
So much for that, Tao. If you have a few questions in the Q&A box, if you have more, feel free to put your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you would like to ask your question verbally, if you feel more comfortable asking verbally, you can put your hand up and then I can unmute you so that you can ask your question. Okay, so first question is, for the 3 to 5 year plan, do you reassess on a yearly or quarterly basis, or just have a general idea for the next 3 to 5 years and adjust as needed?
Personality based, really. Some people really want to have everything written down. For myself, I roughly know where I want to be in about 3 years, and I adjust pretty much on a yearly basis. I generally stop. I write a blog post every year at the start of the year, talking about what happened in the previous year. When I'm writing that blog post, my brain's going over what I want, how I'm adjusting for the next 3 years. But that's, again, some people like formal methods. Some people don't. They just keep it in their brains. Whatever works for you.
Okay, great. Next question is, can having a YouTube channel or a podcast be beneficial for authors?
I mean, yes. It's time, right? if you're doing a YouTube channel or a podcast or any other promotional thing, you're not writing, right? Could it be useful? Could it get your name out there? Sure. But then you're learning how to be a YouTube star. You're not necessarily learning how to be an author and writing and whatnot, which is fine if you have a lot of time. But if you don't, maybe it's better to spend your time finding an agent or writing more or learning the myriad other things that you need to know about being an independent author.
Okay, great. As someone who does have a podcast, I do really enjoy doing podcasts. So maybe if it's like a passion of yours, then certainly that's something you can incorporate as part of your business. But like I said, it does take up a lot of time. So you just have to manage that. Okay, next question is, you mentioned blackout dates. Can you define what blackout dates are and how they work?
So that's going to be dependent upon contracts. It might not even be in your contract at all. It is a very tripod thing. But basically in your contract, it might be a no promotion rule. So within 3 months of your book coming out, you're not allowed to, before your book comes out and after, you're not allowed to promote anything else but this book. So you have to stay focused and keep promoting this book that we put out for you and invested a lot of money. Now that might be a 1 week blackout date, a 1 month blackout date. It might not even be available. It just depends on the contracts.
Okay, great. That's something I didn't actually know that was a thing. So I learned something here too. Next question is, something you noted about debut books is length, ideally 75 to 100K. How hard and fast is this rule? Would 200K be a deal breaker, or is it really context specific?
It's context specific, it's time specific. That has changed a lot. I know when I first started 2017, I think it was actually a little bit bigger. Like you could go from 80 to 120, and then because of paper prices, things have shrunk down a little bit. And it's also genre dependent. Like romance does 50, 60K books and you're happy. Harlequin books, for example. Epic fantasy can flex upwards, but so you have to look at your genre. I think 200K is probably going to be a problem for many. Again, physical size, paper costs, and so forth. So it's going to be difficult. Not impossible, because there's always exceptions, but difficult.
Okay, so the next question is Substack versus own author website, and there's a bit more context. This person has a Substack blog, and they're wondering if it would be helpful to recreate the blog through audio and post on YouTube or Substack podcasts.
I'm always a big fan of reusing whatever content there is. So yeah, feel free to recreate it and post it on YouTube. If you've created it, reuse your IP, make money or promote yourself that way. That makes a lot of sense. My own concern, and this is particularly personal, I don't like having my main site owned by someone else, like Substack. If you do have a Substack, that's not a problem. Make sure to back it up regularly. So if necessary, they take you down, you have all of your content somewhere else, and you can just reload it up onto a WordPress site or somewhere else, and move on from there.
I would add to that also the subscriber list. So I know on Substack, you can download the people who have subscribed to you, I believe, and also their email addresses. So if you lose your Substack account or for whatever reason, then you still have some way to reach out to those folks. Same thing with if you have a newsletter on any of the newsletter platforms, it's a good practice just to download all of the emails once a month, once every couple of months. So in case you lose your account, you haven't lost all of those emails.
Yeah, backups. Mm-hmm. Backup your own writing too, please, dear God.
Yeah, right? Multiple backups in multiple places. Someone is asking if you could show the previous slide. I think that's the multiple income streams. Yes. Okay, we could probably just leave that slide up. What marketing strategies do you use to promote your books on social media?
promote. I social media is actually not the area that I'm very focused on. We do have it on blog, Blue Sky and Threads and Instagram and Facebook, and we do posts on there. We have little graphics and everything that everyone else does. I'm not a social media maven. I don't focus on that. I actually do a lot of paid marketing, advertising to promote myself. So find someone else to bug about that. Unfortunately, I'm not going to give you advice that I am less qualified to offer.
Okay, there's quite a few questions about social media. So, but I think one sort of related to what you just mentioned is how much money can or should an indie author expect to spend on social media marketing to generate a steady income monthly from writing? And so maybe not spending on social media, but spending on like ads, Facebook ads, and things like that.
That little triangle of time, expertise, and
Money.
is going to play out here. I can spend, so if you've got a series, when you promote book one, you generally can expect some sales for book two and book three. How much the sales is, the read-through rate is again dependent upon craft. If you're a good writer, you can drag them along. You'll make more money because more people will read book two and three. But the amount of money that you can make is somewhat dependent upon how many books you have, right? If you have 5 books in that series, or 9 books on the series, will be very different if you promote book one and successfully promote it. So this is a kind of a string question in here. I generally would say you're spending $20 to $30 on advertising. You should be trying to get an ROI minimum of 3. So if you spend $30 on advertising, you should get about $90 in revenue coming back in from all of that. So that's what you should shoot for. You can get up to 5, but these days it's kind of been trending down as advertising works. Social media has the advantage of not requiring anything but time and expertise, right? I have a friend, Aparna Verna, whose job is social media, and she's amazing. You should look at what she does. She gets so many views. Rachel Renner is amazing at social media. And she gets tons of views and does amazing marketing and doesn't do much paid advertising, either one of them, as far as I know. But they have the expertise, they have so it's a string question, right? A lot of time spent learning how to do it and a lot of time building the right things to potentially have a giant jump. Regular posting will help. That I can guarantee you. Consistency will make more overall returns and learning consistently rather than doing it once in a while and then disappearing for 6 months and then doing it again.
Okay, great. There's another question here about building a social media presence versus finishing the manuscript. And based off of what you say, what you just said, it sounds like maybe finishing the manuscript might be more important than trying to build a social media presence. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, initially do a little bit of posting, get yourself out there, write a little bit, but if you don't finish your work, it doesn't matter how big you are if you've never released something, right? So if you've never finished your work, you won't. And personal belief, you're going to need to write 3 or 4 books before you get good at this. Most of us who have done anything can tell you that we have trunk books that no one will ever see the light of day from because they suck so bad.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so for the hybrid publishing option, how much control does the traditional publisher have over the work that you do independently?
If it's independent, what you do, generally very little, except for two potential clauses in there. One is the blackout dates. So the non-promotion dates. So they can dictate where and when you promote. This actually three clauses. Sorry. The second one is non-compete clauses. So they might have a non-compete clause going, you cannot write in this sci-fi fantasy genre. You cannot release another book in this tiny little sliver or potentially big sliver, depending, again, contract, good agent, good lawyer, negotiate with them, figure it out. But they can potentially say, you can't release another fantasy book, please, and that's a non-compete clause in your contract itself. That might mean that you can write thrillers, no problem. You can sell a thriller and release that, and that shouldn't be an issue. But it will matter. They can have that. Third clause is not directly controlled, but often there's an option clause, first look clause, where they are like, well, we put a lot of money into you. We've released your book. We would like to have the first option at your next book in this specific area. It might be your next book. It might be your next fantasy book. Again, all of this is contract language, which will vary. If I have any advice, spend some time reading the author model contract that is out there. The SFWA also has an author model contract. Their explanations, it will help you a lot to understand what is generally considered good and what isn't.
Okay, great. We are out of time. Thank you so much for all of the great questions. Apologies, we couldn't get to all of them. Before we log off, I just have a few announcements to make. Our next webinar series is with Ruby Barrett. Ruby will be with us on Saturday, October 18th, teaching us about how to write intimacy. So if you've ever wanted to get better at writing those spicy scenes, make sure you don't miss this webinar. Registration is open now, and you can find more information at thefoldcanada.org/academy. For those of you who are in the GTA or in the Brampton area, Uzma Jalaluddin will be returning to Brampton as part of the Brampton Author Talk series on Thursday, October 2nd. She will be in conversation with me, and we'll be chatting about her latest book, Detective Auntie. This event is free, but space is limited, so please visit bramptonlibrary.ca to register. We have a survey, a very short attendee survey that I'm going to pop the link into the chat right now. It'll only take you a couple of minutes to complete. We would love to get your feedback on what's working with Folds Academy, what's not working, what you would like to see in the future. So please take a minute to fill it out. The link will also be sent out with the recording. The recording will be posted next week up on YouTube. You will be receiving an email with the link to the video when it's ready. And lastly, we're really committed to keeping Folds Academy free for all writers. And so to do that, we depend on the generosity of our supporters. If you found value in our monthly Folds Academy workshops, please consider supporting us with a monthly or one-time donation. You can visit thefoldscanada.org/donate for various donation options. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Tao, for all of your sharing and expertise. And we will see you next month.